What sort of commercial models are around MyTelegraph and communities generally on the Telegraph?
At the moment, not a great deal, and there's ads run on the site as there are everywhere else. There aren't really special offers to MyTelegraph users. I think there's huge potential for that, but I don't think it's something anyone's really cracked. Part of the problem is that the advertising industry in general the advertising industry in general and the advertising section of papers is used to selling for newspapers, and that's quite big numbers, and numbers around niche communities is inevitably much smaller. That said, the readers of my photo blog, you can fairly safely say are interested in photography at some level. So if you're advertising to them and it's really relevant, I think that's hugely valuable, and I think that's an area we'll probably see quite a lot of growth in. But yeah, at the moment, we don't really differentiate between advertising right across the site and advertising to MyTelegraph separately. But the models of advertising we talk about in that blog, how to make money out of communities, I think most of them are fairly relevant. The tricky bit will be you don't want to feel like you're pushing stuff at people, particularly as they've been blogging away quite happily for 2 years with the ads sort of sitting around the side of the page. I'd be quite hesitant about diving in and flashing stuff up in front of them and saying, equally, if it's really relevant to what they're interested in, and it's some kind of special offer or promotional deal, or which papers have always done, really, you've not paid for the news, the cost of your paper is nearly covered the cost of the news, and now you get a free bottle of water with your paper or free Mars bars. That kind of product-led monetisation has always been around. Nobody's yet brought it online really effectively. I think strong communities can only support that. It can only be a good thing if you have readers who are really engaged, who you know quite a lot about. They are very free to give us lots of data, which at the moment we don't do a great deal with, but we have quite a lot of information about a lot of people. You don't have to give that information in order to sign up. You have to give quite a minimal level of data. People often tell us what car they drive and what other products they use, where they're going on holiday, that kind of stuff. They're quite willing to share it. My guess is that people will get savvier about how much data they're sharing. It still feels as though quite a lot of this is people being quite naive. They'll share something and then it will come up and someone will parrot it back to them, another user, say, 3 months later, and they'll say, how do you know that about me? And be very worried that all this information about them is out there on the internet. Actually, they put it out there on the internet, they just don't quite connect.
And that relationship would change if you started to use that information.
Exactly. So I think you have to proceed sort of gently. But the potential to monetize around the edge of your core product, I personally can't imagine paying for news. This is daily news, it's just everywhere.
So you're not with Rupert Murdoch?
Well, we still don't know exactly what he's going to do. And he is Rupert Murdoch, so
it might actually mean something.
So that's quite compelling, but obviously whether or not Telegraph charges is way above my head, but I can't see charging for daily news as something you could do features. Still, there's just so much content around. Maybe it comes back to what we were saying. Sorry, about the content being the primary thing. If you have really fantastically good content, then potentially I'd pay for it. But it would have to be really quite stunning, and it would also have to be something I was really interested in reading about. General education policy, daily politics stuff. I might not churn of news like that. I'd switch on the radio or TV and go to the wires. Now the wires can directly publish on their own site. You've got any number of news stories.
Sorry, I was going to ask about. Sorry, I was going to ask about your the Telegraph is known for having a very specific readership in the newspaper.
Yeah.
My grandparents read
and
the Telegraph. They vote Tory. You know, they had
Yeah.
2 cars,
Yeah.
nice house, etc., etc., etc. Is your readership online the same people, or are you appealing to a very different group of people? And how does that work? Because I mean, there is what the Telegraph is able to sell to advertisers in the paper is very specific, and that's why it attracts quite a lot of money, or at least has done. Is there any way of replicating that? Is that something you're trying to do, or is it something you can't do?
In terms of readership online, it's younger. It's more international. A lot of readers in America. And then I think there are the rise of those niches. Now you don't have to agree with the paper's politics or generally like their news on the main bit of the paper. You can just come in and read just about a very niche sport. We've definitely seen growth in niches. Often it's been because there's been a particular member of staff who's had an interest in something and been very good at something, and that's boosted it. So we have a blogging, boxing and MMA correspondent who's really cornered the market in blogging about MMA, particularly also boxing. He's incredibly well connected with other MMA blogs around the world. He's got a huge following out in the Far East. He's created this very strong blog, and it's often among our top 5 blogs by our journalists. I don't think you necessarily think of boxing when you think of the Telegraph. But he's built up this audience, and that's then pulled back into his general boxing coverage. He covers boxing for the paper, as well as the blog. But because he's put so much effort into the blog to support his coverage, he's attracted a new readership. And I'd imagine that a lot of those people, particularly in the Far East, don't read our news coverage or don't read our comment. They're just coming for his blog. And I think that's the same in lots of niches. Another one who's done it really well is pianist Stephen Huss, who's an international classical pianist. Played at 4 proms this year, so he's a real superstar in the classical music world. And started blogging for us, and he's really taken off with it. And absolutely loves it. I've never met anyone who replies to every comment that he does. He very dutifully is there, replying at sort of 4 in the morning, partly because he travels so much before, and he spends an awful lot of time sitting in the airport waiting for the next flight, and he spends all that time now blogging and replying to people, and he's going to really interesting places so people get a kind of glimpse of him behind the scenes. But he'd never really done anything like that before, I don't think. And he's taken off, and now we've got a readership of his blog, and it's quite unique. It's mostly about classical music, but he loves hats, and he's quite an eccentric guy, and he sort of throws in all these other things, so he's just got a very strong personal following. So I think those areas can attract a slightly different audience.
So are you getting into the sort of end of things where, newspapers traditionally compete over columnists? Are you competing yet over bloggers? Has there got to that level yet where somebody might leave for the Mail or something like that?
Well, I think when Ben Brogan joined, there was quite a lot of excitement, partly because his blog was so well read. He had been at the Mail, he came to the Telegraph as our chief political correspondent. His blog obviously crossed across, and sometimes you still see on people's blog rolls Ben Brogan's blog, and then reading his Mail blog, and the story's back there, or it's got a logo of him as he looked in his byline picture for the Mail, and it actually goes to his Telegraph blog. So, little bits and pieces, but essentially he's a big name, traditionally a journalist who's very good at blogging and has taken blogging on, but he's not first and foremost known as a blogger.